The transition actually happened really, really quick. I got the job offer on like January 26th, and February 4th was my first day. So a couple weeks, I was done performing, and believe it or not, I never looked back.
Welcome to Recast Rise, the podcast for performers and creatives ready to explore what's next. You'll hear inspiring stories of artists who reinvented themselves and found new careers after the stage. Let's recast and rise. Sarah, welcome. I am really looking forward for our conversation today. Your journey is so inspiring, and I cannot wait for you to share your background and all the transition that you've gone through for the past years. But before we move forward with your career change, can you tell us about your background as a dancer?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. First of all, I think that career transitions, it's a big, important subject for me. So thank you for having me. I really appreciate you thinking of me. My background as a dancer, I was born and raised in France, and I grew up wanting to be a ballerina. So I did the Conservatoire Régional and then the Conservatoire National. I did all the echelons in ballet, very much ballet trained, classically trained, but I was a short muscular dancer, and that did not go so well in a country where if you're not tall and long and fit in the corps de ballet, you don't really have a future in ballet. So after I graduated all my schooling, my first job was actually in a jazz company. So my ballet technique helped me a lot, but that was the first little hint that in life we were going to have to be open-minded. And then, I went on to do more gigging and more commercial stuff in Paris. And I completely by chance auditioned for Franco Dragón, who was auditioning for what was going to become the Celine Dion show, A New Day in Vegas. Completely by chance, saw the ad in a magazine on one day and it was the next morning. And that day completely changed the trajectory of my life. I was hired to work for Celine. I moved to Las Vegas. I finally felt like I had my place. I became a full-on performer, not just a ballerina. I learned that performance was much more than just dance and much more than just one style. It opened a lot of horizons and a lot of thinking for my career. After Celine was done, I was lucky to get my visa to continue working in the States. I did not want to come home. That's when I was hired to work with Rêve. So just across the street, still with Franco. We implemented the ballroom dancers into the show. So there I was, one more time, just doing something completely new and learning to scuba dive and ballroom dance, things that I had never done before. And I did this for about 3 years before Cirque du Soleil hired me for Viva Elvis, which was probably the most polyvalent dancing show that you would ever find. From, pas de deux with point shoes and roller skates to hip hop to full-on contemporary and modern dancing. It was even showgirls. So it was the full range. And when they announced that show was closing, I was really faced with, do I do one more or two more, or do I think of the next step, And that's when everything happened really quickly.
What a journey, and beautiful. And you are right, to your point, with you did all the things from, you talked about ballroom dancing, and you even scuba dived and roller skates and ballet trained. How beautiful. And I love that. I believe in signs. Okay, I do. You saw the ad to work with Dragon, and here you go. The audition is the next day. Those moments that to change course of your life. When you think of that now, what do you think? Are you like pinching yourself, or do when you think of that moment, wow, I saw this ad and maybe I would not be here today?
There were in that room when I auditioned in Paris, there were many other extremely talented dancers. But I strongly believe that it's about human connections and connecting with the right people at the right time. And when I entered that room, and it was Jean-Emile at the time who was running the audition with the Dragon casting team, and it just connected. I looked at this man, I looked at the work he did, every exercise he made us do just worked, and it was just a blast, right? So it just worked. And that moment, even before I got the job, was pivotal in the way I thought of my career. Because from that moment on, when I was in that room after many a bad audition, I felt like I belonged. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yes.
And it was like, okay, I am here. This is what I'm meant to do. And all the hard work and all the no's are worth it.
All the no's are worth it. I love
Uh-huh.
this so much. I love this so much. And not only in dance, with any career change that a performer or an artist will encounter, we'll get a
Yeah.
lot of no's. But yeah, we get a lot of no's through auditions as well. And that's part of it. Yep. All right. Thank you so much. I'm blown away with all your background and the variety of all the things you've done. So you're at Viva Elvis, the show is closing, and you're faced to what the unknown, or that question, that question of what do I do? Do I continue or do I move on? So yeah, I guess tell us how that changed. What was next? How did you transition? And yeah, tell us about how you did that.
So my transition from a performer to a casting advisor happened really quickly, really smoothly, really weirdly. The show was just announced that it was going to close. And right at that time, and I had no clue because as a performer, you only look at audition notice, not at job openings. Apparently, the casting advisors for all artistic role over at Cirque du Soleil was leaving. So there was an opening in the casting team right at that time. And it's actually my company manager who came to me. We had done like outside projects and like things where I was not on stage, but more in like the organization kind of part. So I had always been not just doing the stage thing since an early age. Even with my mom's ballet school, I was always, doing lights and musics and stuff like that. So I was never just a performer, period. And so my company manager came to me and said, this job is open. You should really apply. I really think this is for you. And I just was completely floored. And I said, okay. And she's like, but it looks like it's closing at midnight. So you need to send a resume today. So I get home after the show. It's like 11:30. I have 30 minutes to send a resume.
No.
And I look at my resume and it's just performance. So I'm like, how do I plump this up so that it looks like I've done other things? So I like scratch my head and I put all of the things that I've done on the side and I send it over. And of course, it lands on the desk of the same casting director who had cast me as a performer, Krista Monson.
Full circle. I love that. Yes.
So the next week, they call me and say, hey, we'd like to have you come for an interview. And, part of me was like, okay, it's all redeployment. They're being nice and polite and politically correct. And so I go in the room, I'm in my little suit, trying to look office proper. And the first thing that Krista tells me is, you look very different without your sweats.
That is so funny. I can only imagine this scenario for sure. You probably left your house with the sweatpants actually, and you're like, oh, maybe I should change it.
Yeah. So, that was my first clue that I wasn't, that I figured it out at least up until I sat down in the room, right? And so the first interview went well. It was just conversations on what I had done, my connections, like what potential I could have for the role. And then I was invited to a second interview where I had to do this massive exercise. They gave me 4 full casting calls and like performers to rate and tell them why I thought this person would be good for the role and things like that. So just full job for 4 different shows. And it was a long exercise. I think I spent like 15 hours on that exercise. But I came back for that second interview. I had my presentation ready, like everything was organized, and it was really fun to do. So regardless, I had a ton of fun. And Krista said, okay, whomever's going to make it to the next phase is going to meet with the team. So we'll call you by the end of the week. The end of the week comes and they never call. The weekend passes, I perform, I do my shows, everything goes normal. My stomach is in shambles. That was a really cool opportunity. Okay, I get it. And then on Monday morning, I'm getting ready to go teach classes because at that time I was teaching and performing and doing all the things. And so I'm just getting out of the shower. I'm still in my little towel and I get a phone call from Krista, her personal phone. And I'm like, hello. And she's like, Sarah, how are you? I'm so sorry I didn't call on Friday. Normally, this is HR that does those calls, but I wanted to call you myself. And we're not going to need a third interview. We really want you to join.
Yes!
So here I am in my little towel, just dancing in my room, trying to like sound really quiet and
With the
calm
towel.
on the phone, right? And that was the moment that completely changed
Yeah.
my life because I went from my passion to my other passion. And I was really, really lucky because Krista actually was such an amazing and supportive mentor that without
Yeah.
her, I don't know that my journey would have continued to grow in this world, right?
Yeah.
So she
Yeah.
really first believed in me. And secondly, believed that even though I did not have like recruiting in my background, that I had the eye and the potential. And she really, really spent the time to make sure that I was equipped for success. So that's been essential for my growth there. Yeah.
Such a beautiful story. And yes, Krista is special. She is
Yeah.
such a wonderful woman. Yes. I'm glad that you not only had a wonderful transition, but you had a really powerful, I'll call it a powerful mentor.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Now the show closes. You take your last bow. You know that there's this role, this job that's waiting for you. How did you manage your identity as Sarah, the dancer that really the next Monday you're at the office or close enough whenever that transition happened? How did that go with you? Like that identity of you being a dancer and not being a dancer anymore?
Yeah, the transition actually happened really, really quick. I got the job offer on like January 26th and February 4th was my first day. So a couple weeks, I was done performing. And believe it or not, I never looked back. It's absolutely insane to think about it. Everybody told me you're going to miss it. You're going to want to be back in it in 6 months. I mean, I was only 32 years old. I had another probably 10 years in front of me. Yeah, I ended up ending my career before my body was completely broken, which is a plus. But I think it really wasn't difficult because I really got the job of a lifetime. I mean, how much better does it get than being in a room with aspiring performers, being the person that's going to have that, that decision making, that influence in somebody's career, being able to give advice, being able to support the youth, being able to give them feedback on what's there, being able to be a part of making the shows, so from both ends, like from, the relationship with the performers and who I was and what I needed as a performer, trying to give them that, but also working intimately with creators and directors and finding like the gem that's going to fit in that amazing role that, I mean, Cirque du Soleil, all the roles were so specific and unique. And I used to call them unicorns. Every single role was a unicorn in itself. So it was like looking for that magical needle in a haystack, right? For each casting call and just crossing the most unbelievable talent that I had ever seen. So what's not to love?
Yes.
Right?
What's not to love? Quick pause. If you are a performer wondering what's next for me, let's connect. I would love to speak with you. You can also send me a message on my socials. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more inspiring stories and career tools. Now, back to our chat. You mentioned that connection is probably one of the things that got you the role back in the day when you started. That you had that connection and it was clear. Is connection one of the things that, you know what, that was important to me and you still use it to this day?
Absolutely. I strongly, strongly believe that everything we do in work, in family, in personal stuff, in anything, all comes to human connection. It really all comes to that. And now being on the other side of the table, I look for that intangible quality from the performers. I really look for people that are not just amazing technicians, not just amazing performers, but also these good humans that are going to be able to be part of the team, that are going to be able to have that exchange with you back and forth, not just the good little worker, right? And so there's definitely that sense of human connection that's still very much a part of my day to day.
Back in the day, let's just teleport ourselves when you just did that transition after Viva Elvis to being to working with Cirque. Did you have to learn any skills? Yeah, tell us more about that. What skills did you have to learn back then, if any?
So, yeah, so I didn't really go to school for computer or Excel or Word or anything like that. But I used the computer in my daily life, and I was able to do like an easy, simple spreadsheet, things like that. So I didn't come completely blank, but I had to learn video editing. I had to learn really to work Excel. I had to learn the database system. And everything was in English too. Like that's not my first language, right? So I had to learn to do business in English, which was also something like how do you write an email without using the wrong expressions or the wrong play on words so that people don't get offended? Like these are true stories, you know?
Yes, yes.
So soft skills as much as hard skills, I think. How, especially in this type of role, like you have to be politically correct. You have to be able to say the right things. You can never get frustrated. You can never get offended. Like this is not we're the ambassadors of the company that we represent. We're literally the first people that performers meet. So if we don't have that positive image, they're not going to buy what we're selling. you know at the end of
True,
the day.
true.
So all of these, how to present a performer in their best light, how to make sure that I put the right type of information in a presentation, like all these little things are all things that I had to learn. But as far
Yes.
as skills, it was mostly technical computer
Mhm.
stuff, but luckily it wasn't difficult for me.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, what kind of people did you need to surround yourself to be successful, and who are you grateful for?
When I started in casting, I think what made for my success was really the surrounding of an absolute A team. I think Krista brought me in a group that was extremely generous, that was extremely giving, and that was completely embraced me, and believed that I also that I had the potential, and completely supported me in my growth, all the way from being an advisor to being the head of the team. You know what I mean? So I was very lucky that, first of all, my colleagues were extremely supportive. Obviously, there were many a nights where I would have really hard casting calls, and I thought it was completely impossible to make it happen. And I would come home and felt completely defeated. And if it wasn't for my husband, I would not be where I am today, because he's my biggest supporter and my rock. And I think him being fully supportive of my transition to start with was the biggest step.
I love this. What would you say to someone that is interested in following your path and becoming a casting advisor?
So, casting is not just what you see from the outside. Yes, it looks absolutely glamorous. You travel, you meet people, you're a jury in a festival, you do all these cool auditions. This is just one little small piece of it. The rest of the time, especially in my current role here at Feld, the casting is much more broad than it used to be at Cirque, where I was just casting and then they moved on to the next one. But most casting directors, they take care of scouting, hiring, building contracts, offering contracts, all this stuff, right? So first and foremost is it's not just always glamorous. There are many, many hours in front of a computer doing boring paperwork and boring administrative stuff and long meetings. So it's not all that it's always cracked up to be, for sure. Now, if you're passionate about it, that's not going to be an issue. But the biggest thing is that it's very different from what people would imagine it is. The second piece of it, and I think that's the most important, is that once you moved to the casting part of it, it's absolutely not about you.
Interesting.
It's all about the performers. It's about their qualities. It's about showcasing them. And it has nothing to do with me. I am just here to be the conduit to bring the talent to the show, right? So even in an audition room, it's not about me. I am here to give them the instruction. I am here to support them. I am here to make them be the best people they can be. And trust me, when I get into that room, I want them all to succeed. But it really, 50% is absolutely not about me.
I've never seen it that way, and it does make sense. Of course, you're their biggest fan. You want them to succeed. You can relate to that probably. They are auditioning, you know the stress, you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, and also, it would make my job super easy if everybody was fantastic. But also, yes, I have been in their shoes and I get it. I get that every single one of the person that's in that room has made an effort, has worked towards it. Their time is as valuable as mine, so I think sometimes there's this idea of like the casting director coming in and having like that big old head and having this big ego and it's so completely the opposite of this. I strongly believe that it's about making it the most comfortable environment for the performers to be at their best.
Were there moments where you were like, oof, I don't know if I can continue doing this? I think I know the answer, but
Oh my gosh, no. I have never wanted to give up
yeah.
because this has been the absolute dream job. And actually, life has forced me to give it up for a bit because of the pandemic, right? When the pandemic happened, there was a massive, massive question and, like personal doubt on like, what if it doesn't come back? What am I going to do? And I tried and I became a real estate agent and I sold homes and I tried being a matchmaker in other ways. And I was
Oh,
successful yet miserable. And so when things started coming back, it was my mission to get back to this. Before I went back to casting, I did take another turn managing a show, and I was more on the operations and more on the day to day and like watching the same show every day and more managing the performers and, being a creative. And while that was wonderful, that was still not my path. Like I really am the happiest and the most fulfilled casting performers.
it's very inspiring. It truly is inspiring. You look very happy, and it seems like you're exactly where you should be for now anyway. Who knows? Who knows where you'll
Yeah.
be in 5 years? Actually, where will Sarah be in 5-10 years? Like, what's next for you? Or are you just so happy? I mean, you are, but what's next for you?
Right now, I'm about 2 years in my current role. So I still have, a little bit to bite. I'm about to have my first creation with this company. I have not built a show with them yet. I've only kept shows going. So this is actually my first like full baby that I've cast 100%. We've got the new Ringling coming up, and I cast 67 performers from all over the world by myself. So this is the next challenge in the next year to make sure that this show is the best that it can be and really the best that the brand can bring. Within the next 5 years, I think, it will really depend on where the company goes. If there's continued growth, the goal would be to grow my team and to be able to reach further with a team of really good professionals, but also maybe become a more like strategic player within the casting and not being as much on the road, right? It is the most wonderful job in the world, but I still have a family. So being gone 6 months of the year, I don't think it's realistic for the next 10 years, you
Yeah.
know? So maybe
Yes.
another 5 of that. And then eventually, hopefully something that's a little more strategic and a little
Yep.
more supportive of others who can start and pick up what I've
Yep.
left off.
Yep. I love your vision, and career change is
Mhm.
about a lot of things, but one of the things is also to know what you want, especially when you're at a big transition. You need to pivot and find something completely different. When you have
Mhm.
a vision of where you want to go, that's huge, and that's definitely a starting point. And you're in it, and you have that vision of like, okay, what's next? Where do I want to go? I hope everyone that's listening to your story is empowered to see that there's a lot out there, a lot of different jobs that can still be very creative. And you are the example of that.
I think the key to it, because, when you look at it, I've had many transitions within
Yeah.
my life, even while being a performer. I went from being tagged a complete ballerina to being a jazz dancer to being a full on performer to sing on stage to do ballroom. Like the key to it is to be open to learn and be open to take on the challenge. If you looked on paper, I wasn't always qualified for the things that I accepted to take on, but I went for it and I did my homework. And, I am still a huge fan of continuous learning. I'm always on LinkedIn Learning doing classes. Like, we're so lucky the company supports this. Like, I encourage just continuous development, continuous learning. If anything, just for yourself. It doesn't even have to be for your career, you know? I think that's been huge in my development and in my growth, that I just never settled. I could say I'm director of casting now. I'm good. This is kind of like the pinnacle of what I can do. I don't want to stop there, you know? And even if it's the same title for the next 10 years, the role will continue to evolve, because if we don't continue to evolve, then what are we here for?
Yep. Sarah, thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with anyone that is looking into transitioning from being a performer or creative to a complete different career?
Don't be afraid to connect with the people who inspire you. I don't know anybody who will ever be shy of talking about what they do, talking about their journey, and giving you advice on how to get there. I think especially in our field, and especially for ex-performers who have moved on to different things, I think it's our duty to help the next generation figure out what's next for them, right? I don't know that our generation had as much support. So trust me, it's one of my missions to make sure that I offer that support for the coming generation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there a fun fact or something you want to share? And if nothing comes to mind, that's okay.
So I don't know that there's like a fun fact.
How do you like traveling? How is that? You go, obviously.
Or there are fun facts there. I have stories, books on the traveling saga of Sarah.
You should write a book. I'd buy it.
Right? I think the biggest thing is the food when you travel, right? Like, I just spent another 2 weeks in China and they were offering me turtle to eat, right? So sometimes like that's where it's hard.
The question is, did you eat the turtle? That's the question.
I was like, I'm gonna be very honest. This is where I draw the line.
Nope. Thank you very much.
You can consider me a vegetarian for this dinner. Thank you very much. No, I think the biggest things, there is a fun fact. At my job at Cirque du Soleil and my job at Feld Entertainment, both time I replaced the same person.
No, that was okay. This is mind blowing. This is meant to be
Yep.
another moment of Sarah's destiny.
Yeah. Giulio Scatola was the artistic advisor at Cirque du Soleil before me, and he's the one I replaced. And then he was hired as the casting director for Ringling when Ringling came back. And when he decided to leave, they gave me the role. So I told him, choose your next job carefully.
I always felt that you want people to succeed. You really do.
Absolutely. That's like, again, it's not about me. And it's in everything I do, even with my family, you know what I mean? Like, and I get that from my mom. She was very giving, very generous, you know, took care of everybody else before herself. So that's the example I grew up with. And I had my moment. I had my moment to shine, and it was wonderful. But it's so much better to find that gem who's like dancing in the street and who's 18 years old that becomes the next star, and, you know, and just see them succeed. And it doesn't even matter if they remember me or not. You know what I mean? Because in my heart, I know that somehow, somewhere, for like an instant, I was part of that exceptional journey.
Yeah.
And that's my gift.
Do you sometimes have some artists that personally thank you for giving them the opportunity that they have?
These
Whatever
like
roles.
these messages actually like make me absolutely bawl.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah.
You know, actually just last week, a performer from Mystère who I hired like 10 years ago was like, I am leaving the show. I'm finally done. I just wanted to thank you. You were such a big part of my journey. Like, but people from a decade ago would contact me and be like, you've always been there, right? It's not expected, and it's not what I'm looking for, right? But when it comes, like, it really is special. And there are some like special performers, like from day one, like we're still connected, you know? And these are people that if you ask me which were my favorite casting call and my favorite like hires, like there are like a handful of people that I will always remember. And there's such special moments of like goosebumps in auditions and, you know, like completely like transformed trajectory for them as well. Like these are true gifts in my life, you know?
Yeah.
Like it could be so much worse.
Yes, the feeling when you go to bed at night that you made a difference for an artist. Oh, wonderful. Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, really, thank you for all you do for all the artists that you give a chance to perform and shine. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This has been really, really nice. And again, I'm so excited about this podcast and you giving this message and this ability for performers to kind of get that advice without having to go ask for it, because sometimes that's not right.
Thank you for listening to Recast Rise. If today's story made a difference, share it with a fellow artist and creative friend. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow me on my socials for tips and tricks to navigate your career change. Until next time, I will see you in the next episode.